The Wednesday Week is sponsored by the Riverside Cafe, new outside bar now open on match days.
There's a chance here, a great save by Turner from McClair. Might come a terrific goal by Sheridan.
Brexman against Jones. Get in.
You could have two goalkeepers in there, they would have something big saving.
Hello and welcome to the Wednesday Week, the Sheffield Wednesday podcast. I'm James, your stand-in host. And your Wednesday week lineup today, returning her place after returning from a 2-match ban last week, it's Victoria Wood.
Good evening, James.
How are we?
I'm all right. Are you?
Well, I am, but we are a little depleted on our usual numbers.
We are, but at least we have celebrity friends.
Well, unfortunately, Lord H cannot be here. He's currently being investigated after undercover footage emerged of him apparently explaining to other podcasts how they can get around iTunes rules and regulations. Eddie is also suspended at the moment pending an internal investigation after newspaper reports that he accepted a bung in return for making disparaging remarks about Blackburn last week. Rich Davies, he's on strike. He's made a formal complaint alleging a campaign of sabotage against his Where Are They Now feature by an unnamed Wednesday Week podcaster. And Fudge is never here, is he? Fudge never turns up, so that's no surprise.
For religion, let's be honest.
But all is not lost because we've managed to secure an emergency loan signing all the way from La Liga. It's David Garrido.
Thank you very much. Yes. You are scraping barrels with me, I'm afraid. But what can you do?
Now, since we last talked, David, you've had a promotion. You've got a new job, haven't you?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, I mean, I'm still doing Sky Sports News, but I'm sort of splitting my week. So I'm doing a little bit less of that, and I'm hosting La Liga on Sky Sports, which is cool because I've always loved it, and I speak the language, and it really sort of is a natural fit. So I get to work with Guillaume Balaguer, who's a legend. He's such a nice bloke, and he's just really welcomed me in, and he really drives the thing. So behind the scenes, he does a lot, and yeah, it's great. It's nice to have a new project, a fresh focus. So can't complain. All good.
Well, thank you.
The thing is, David, when I met you 8-10 years ago, you were on Radio 1 doing the news, doing the sports news. This is the dream, isn't it? You are living the dream right now. Like Sky Sports was the dream, but La Liga, I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, listen, I mean, a lot of people would be desperate to present Match of the Day or desperate to present, but I suppose Super Sunday or Monday Night Football or something like that. But for me, I've always loved foreign football. I've always just been really intrigued by it. It's just quite, obviously in Spain, it's such high level, technically, tactically, they're way ahead. And I find it just culturally really interesting, as stupid as that sounds, but as I say, it's something that really fits me and my background. So when they asked me if I how I feel about doing it, I went I'd feel pretty good. So it's great. It's lovely. I can't we're just 6 games into the season, but it's a long old season, and I just want to. It's one of the products from Sky that I think it's always been really, really good, and I just want to keep it at that level. So we'll see how it goes.
And come on, anything's got to be better than hosting Burnley versus Watford on a Monday night, hasn't it? I mean,
the thing is that you will get sort of some teams that you probably the average English British football fan won't have heard of, like Leganés or I don't know Osasuna. Well, actually, Osasuna you might have heard of, or slightly random teams. But I suppose the challenge is trying to pick out those really kind of cool little stories that develop those teams. I went to a football conference called SoccerX earlier this week. You might have heard of it. It's kind of like quite a sort of corporate-y,
It's a big deal. You might have heard of it.
You might have heard of it. But the thing is that they've got a really strong connection with La Liga this year. So it was just perfectly timed for me to go and just meet loads of people. And honestly, the nicest people. And the fact that I was sort of representing their brand here, they were sort of, really pleased to meet me and have that interest. And so, so it was really, really cool. And hopefully they will help me get those quirky little stories on air, those things you don't really hear about. So I can sort of, if I do have Leganés on the telly, then I might be able to hook you in by telling you something about them that maybe you didn't know. And then you'll stick and watch the game. So, we'll see how it goes.
Excellent stuff. Right, down to Wednesday business then, because it's been a busy old week on the pitch. First up was Nottingham Forest at Hillsborough on Saturday. Now, let's be right about this. There is no better way, is there, to win a game than in injury time. But it really isn't doing our health much good, is it? I've aged horribly in the last fortnight.
I'd rather be winning 6-0 by half time. There is a better way. There's a better way. There is a way that doesn't end up turning me grey and turning me into an absolute nervous wreck by half time. There is a better way. However, I made a bet with you, James, before the match that if we won in the last 7 minutes, I believe it was, that you had to come to the pub for another drink. And therefore, I got more James time. So I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big sacrifice. I just had to come and have more beer. But, these things have to be done. Earlier on this evening, I went for tea with my dad, who was at the game on Saturday. And he said he thought we were a bit lucky that a draw would have been a good result. And I said, were you at the same match at me? I thought we played brilliantly. What do you guys think?
Listen, I haven't seen as much of us this season as I'd like to have done. But I think we were well worth the points. I think it was sort of one of those that the Forest game and the Blackburn game, actually. But the Forest game, another late goal. And yet one of the things that it proves is that even when, things aren't going as well as that they should be on the pitch, you go a goal down. We've just got this utter belief that we can come back from anywhere. Doesn't matter, 1 goal down, 2 goals down. And, that really does bode well. I'm with you, Vic. I would rather not have to do it. But I think that, we're starting to settle a little bit now. I think before my worry was I'm not entirely sure what our first 11 is anymore. And it's nice to have options. But one of the things that we were all secure about last season is that pretty much maybe with one change or one area of doubt, we all knew what the strongest 11 was. And we would just go and deliver on that. Now, I'm not sure. I think we had slightly, I don't know what our identity is anymore, a little bit. I think we've kind of just changed that. We've got a lot of, trying to move things around a bit. But the good thing is that we are still coming back and winning games. And I think we were value for the points. I think, in both games, we really were.
I genuinely think we played well, like the whole game. I don't think there was anything that we could say. I think there were about 10 minutes in between sort of maybe 20 minutes, between 40, 65 minutes, something like that we completely lost it. And not in a bad way, in a way that we weren't totally annihilating them. But after that, I think we pulled it back again and we bossed it. We were awesome. But I do think, and I know I sound like a broken record, but Dave coming on did make a huge difference, as usual.
Yeah, that's very true. We don't often analyse a last-minute winner, do we? Because it's about the relief of it going in. But when you watch that goal back, I mean, that was a neat goal, wasn't it? And Dave did play a key part in it, as did Fletcher. But come on, guys. Kieran Lee, 150th appearance for Wednesday. I mean, could he have marked it in any better a way?
Definitely not. I mean, he was just, he's one of these people that for probably the first year that we had him, he got the credit of, he comes from Oldham, his touch is golden and all that jazz, but he didn't get the full credit. And I think from the end, sort of middle to end of last season and the start of this season, people are starting to really realise what he can do. And he is brilliant. He's awesome. And you can play him defensive, you can play him attacking, and he always comes up with the goods. And he has had, let's not forget, Bristol City, he messed up 2 or 3 times in that, and he really, really did. And one of them cost us a goal. However, yet again, pulled it back, worked for it, and that's the kind of player that he is. He is a player that will run after every single ball. And that's what we need. And I think as well, it's not a usual type of player in the Premiership. So if we did go up, or if we are competing in the top 6, I think he might shock a few people. I think he might scare a few people.
Yeah, I agree. I think the thing about Kieran is that he he's sort of a little barometer for the team. If he's playing well, we play well. And I think that he kind of goes about his business in such an unassuming way. He's such a sort of tidy, nifty player. You kind of get so used to seeing it that you just, therefore, just expect it. So what then happens is that if he doesn't for one game produce it, because no one's perfect, everyone has off days, and suddenly our level drops, our intensity drops, we don't move the ball as quickly, we don't have the intensity, the urgency. I think he's a real example of that. And the other thing is his engine. I mean, it's no surprise that it's him that's scoring these late goals, because he's still the one who's getting into the box when everyone else is tired and just can't be bothered. And we saw it against Rotherham, a couple of seasons ago, and we saw it against Bristol City, and now again against Forest. So I think that it's that combination. He's just so metronomically good, and also he's just so fit compared to some of the other players.
We talked, and you touched a little bit on it there, David, about almost like our embarrassment of riches in midfield, and the fact that we just can't play all the players that we've got. It was almost like a bit of a rare outing for Alman Abdi in the second half against Forest, who's obviously not been involved too much of late. I don't know what you guys thought. I thought he looked really effective. I thought he had a really good performance when he came on.
He was brilliant, and I must admit, I read a lot of stuff about him after the last match that he played before that, and people were saying that he was a bit poor. And, then we saw, obviously, Joe Cran and his stats saying that he got 100% pass rate, blah, blah, blah. And yet people were still slating him, saying, they were like little passes or tippy-tappy football, blah, blah, blah. But actually, I think he's really, really good. And, it's like David said, we need to find our first 11. But I do think that Abdi deserves a part in that. I don't know where you fit him in. Can we play 15? That'd be
yeah, exactly. And half of them in midfield. I mean, this is the thing, is that I have two concerns. One is Abdi, where he's playing. I mean, at the moment, if he's playing anywhere, and when he starts, it's left side. That's not where he normally plays. That's where he got stuck when he was at Watford, and he didn't like it. Look, we've just spent a fair amount of money on this guy. We don't want to make him feel the same. The other thing is, if that is where we're going to put him, which I think is wrong, then what happens when Poodle's fit? Who then plays there? Well, I would play Reach there, because I think that he is quality. And I think that Alman Abdi is also very good. I mean, Watford fans, when we signed him, were crying pretty much. I mean, they were more upset
10 times more than Fessy, weren't they? Yeah.
Yeah.
10 times more.
I think that for me, the midfield. Look, I think David Jones did a good job against Forest, and I think that there are certain times when you play certain players. We do have too many, I think, but I actually think you could probably do something like Lee, Bannon, Abdi, Reach, or something like that. That for me is the most consistent, talented midfield. You don't have width on the right, but you do on the left. So we seem.
But then you're losing Ross Wallace.
You are, but Ross hasn't.
It's all like,
yeah, but I mean,
so
listen,
hard.
you're right, and he scored goals last season, and he created and he assisted, but Ross hasn't provided it for us yet this season, I don't think. So why don't we try that? I don't know. I mean, listen, we've got, at least as you say, James, we've got an embarrassment of riches. So it's not like it's the worst dilemma in the world, but it's still a dilemma.
How good is it though? Can I just point out, how good is it that we're not just relying on Chris Lines or John Paul McGovern or someone like that? Like we've got too many good players, like £1 million, £2 million, £3 million players that we can't fit into a team.
Yeah,
it's mental.
Yeah, you're right. I think it is. I was chatting to someone about this actually earlier in the week, and actually you might have heard of this guy, Chris Brooks, who's a Wednesday fan. He's got Beats and Rhymes FC as his website, and he interviewed me for a few years ago, and I bumped into him at this thing, and I was saying exactly that. That fans just are so extreme. Everything is Carlos had a dream or Carlos out, and nothing in the middle. And yet, actually, look at where we are now compared to just 5 seasons ago. And you're right. Look, if we would have died for a player of just David Jones's quality,
we would.
Let alone have him sat on our bench and going, "Oh, I'm not sure why we signed him." Do you know what I mean? The perspective, the ability to be just, balanced sometimes completely disappears with fans, and overall the picture is so much better. But we do still need to solve the problem. We still need to find a solution. And, maybe Bannon's little niggling injury is where Abdi should be. I would love the thought of him linking up with Forestieri. I think that they can really get an understanding that just gives a different dynamic to the midfield. But
they already have it. They already have it, don't they? That's the thing. Like, that's the reason he came here. Let's be honest. There's money. There's the prospect of going to the Premiership and whatever else. But Fessie's the main reason that he came here, because he said he wanted to play with him again.
Yeah.
And yet he's not.
Yeah.
Maybe 9 to 5 in the week he gets to have a kickabout with him, but not on the pitch.
I do feel Abdi's wasted on the bench or on the left side of midfield. My hope would be that we can find another way of incorporating him. But look, we won 4 out of 5. Carlos is still doing a good job. We're in and again amongst that, top 6. So I can't criticise that, but I still think there's an issue there that needs to be addressed.
Are we trying to find a solution to a problem that's not really there? In the regards that we were talking about this a bit in the car on the way to Blackburn, that we've all been saying for a few weeks now, we've got to figure out who our best 11 is. Is Carlos thinking that situation is never going to come round? The games come so thick and fast in the Championship. You pick up so many injuries in the Championship that we're not going to have a settled midfield. It is going to be changing pretty much game in, game out, and that's just the way it's going to be. And we'd like to try and incorporate every player into that, but that's just never going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. And I think it's like I said, like, you couldn't dream this team 5 years ago. Like, you couldn't even think about it. And now we're panicking over 4 out of 5. Like, for Christ's sake, you know what I mean? But don't get me wrong, I'm still the same person at 60 minutes that's screaming and shouting and saying, we need to do this, this and this. I sent Carlos my tactics the other night. He didn't follow them. Bit offended Carlos, and he listened. So, but there's got to be something like that. We've just got to sit back and go, do you know what? Yeah, he knows exactly what he's doing. Let's leave him to it. He's brilliant.
Well, he does, but I do also think that we don't have the surprise factor this season anymore. People know what we're about, and especially away from home, we can get bullied. And that, for me, is why the Blackburn result was quite so significant. It was because we stuck Jones in there. He was composed. He broke up the play. He was nice and calming influence. And we didn't get bullied like we were away to Burton or like we had been at home to Leeds. And so maybe if people have already worked this out, maybe the way to try and keep some element of surprise is to change the team. But I wouldn't want to change a team for changing's sake. We only, I think, kept one unchanged 11 last season, or maybe 2. And it took us till literally about 3/4 of the way through the season to get it. So, it's one of those things that I think a degree of consistency still is needed. And I'd like us to, maybe have found a style and an ethos that we had last season, because that gave us balance, that gave us consistency. We went on a run this time last season, which kind of really embodied that. So I think it's kind of a mixture of these things. I don't think, by any means we're doing badly at all. Look at who else is, in and around us in the table. Teams have lost just as much as we have. Norwich and Newcastle lost 2 or 3 times. It's not like, we're way behind. The only team that's lost once is Birmingham. So, and we could have beaten them. So it's still like one of those things where, look, listen, we're fine. We're absolutely fine. But in terms of identity, I just don't know exactly what we are right now, which is quite, I don't know, sometimes it's quite intriguing. It's quite confusing.
That must be great from Carlos's perspective as well. To be able to go, yeah, bitch, you don't know what I'm going to play next match.
Yeah.
I could play Abdi, I could play Lee, I could play Bannon. You don't know. And that's got to be a really good thing, because as an away manager, surely the first thing you do is watch the last 3 games on DVD and analyse everything. And the fact that he has no idea, the opposite manager has no idea who we're going to play and where and when, that's got to be a good thing. It's just, It is frustrating as fans. It really, really is, because we want to feel like we're in the know, and we want to feel like we know every week who's going to be the starting 11, who's going to score at what time, and whatever else. But actually, it's time to kind of sit back and go, do you know what, Mr. Chansiri and Carlos have got this in hand, like, completely. It's frustrating to not be so cocky and in the know about it.
It's a bit of a balancing act, isn't it? Between, you're right about that element of surprise about what the team is that we're going to play, and even what tactics we're going to play, against the value of having a style of play that the players know inside out. And as we saw last season, when you get to know a style of play inside out, you can go on a great run and you can pick up lots of points. And obviously, we made it into the top 6 last season, so it is a tricky one. One more point on Forest before we move on, and again, something that so easily gets forgotten in the circumstances of a last-minute winner. But that save by Westwood at the start of the second half,
yes.
That was fantastic, and he has surely eradicated the ghosts of the Brentford and Birmingham mistakes in a split second there, hasn't he?
Yeah, it was a great save. It was one of those that you could see it going in, and you're just thinking, this is such a perfectly placed glanced header. It was, and it was one of those saves that makes you so glad that we've got him, because the Brentford mistake was unfortunate, just took a little too long, and it was a bad error of judgment at Birmingham. But that is what he produces, 2 or 3 times a month, and he's single-handedly won games for us by just being brilliant like that. So again, no one's perfect. And he does more of what we saw against Forest than he does what he saw against Brentford and Birmingham. So yeah, I mean that's Westy back to his best right there.
Absolutely. Right then, back on the road then on Tuesday, over the hills to that charming place that is Blackburn. Now, they were in decent form, weren't they, coming into the game on Tuesday? 2 wins on the bounce. I must admit, before the game, I did have a slight nervousness. I think playing them 2-3 weeks ago, I'd have thought, we can stuff these. We can really beat them easily. But with our wobbly away run and them in good form, it was always going to be a bit of a close one. But that was pretty much the ideal away performance, wasn't it? We got the goal and then we defended the lead resolutely.
James, I just want to do a public service announcement before we talk about this. So I was listening on my FM radio. It's like one of them DAB, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. It tunes into radio, whatever you press. But when it got to FM, it kept crackling. So I don't know if anyone saw on Twitter, but I had numerous different sort of ways that I was trying to earth the radio just to get it in. And do you know what worked? A new potato. Down the aerial, halfway down, brilliant. No crackling, yep, and a potato earths your radio. That is a true fact. And I remember
Is that because the potato comes from the earth?
Yeah. You know what? I don't know why I thought of it, but I was like, my granddad always, because when I was little, and my mum and dad used to go to away games, I used to go to my nan and granddad's house, and my granddad always used to put a potato on the radio to earth it, like to get better signal. And it worked the other night, and I did tweet it from our account and a photo, and it genuinely worked. Like, I tried everything. I had my foot on it for like 20 minutes. It's just like, if you need a wee, you could lose all signal here. Like, there's nothing I can do. So I got a potato, and it worked. But yeah, it sounded great via the potato.
I've heard, by the way, that Currys are now giving a free potato with every new radio after your example from Tuesday night.
So they should.
Do you know what? I mean, the goal from Stephen Fletcher was an excellent goal. Now, I have a slight dilemma here, because where I was in the crowd at Ewood Park, I was right, not behind, but sort of in front of that shot as it went in. And I absolutely swear blind that it took a deflection off the defender, and that's why the keeper didn't get anywhere near it. Watching the TV replay, you can't see that. You can't tell. I am absolutely certain it did. I asked my friends, and they said, yeah, I sort of thought that it did, but I'm not really sure. So it's inconclusive, but I'm sure it took a deflection.
I'll try and ask him.
That would be, if we could settle this.
Look at you with your contact.
Is this a WhatsApp like Alex Lopez was, or are you Snapchatting him?
Neither. I'll let you know. I've just inquired.
Normally, I would ask David Garrido these sort of questions.
I think it was clean. I think it was it just shows what he brings. It's the assists for Hooper at Birmingham. He's so much more than just a target man. I think we're really appreciating that now. And I think he's a player that plays so much on confidence, and he didn't have it at Sunderland, didn't have it at Marseille. But, he for me is one of the first names on the team sheet. It's either him and Forestieri or him and Hooper with Forestieri maybe out left. But Stephen, for me, has been just a real revelation. He's really into his stride now. And for me, I think it was just one of those, and him and Bannon particularly, they do it for Scotland, they do it for Wednesday. They link up so well, and he just was so full of confidence that I think it was all completely intended, and I think it was clean. So yeah,
that's another one of my things from my point earlier, is that we have to just go, oh my God, how good is Stephen Fletcher?
Yeah,
and he plays for us. Like, it's not happened for so long that we have to just, at some point, like, I know every so often I get slated for being too positive on a podcast, too negative, but too positive I'll take. But Jesus Christ, the guy can't stop. Like, he's just brilliant, isn't he? And we don't have any bad players. That's the main thing at the moment. Like, we don't have anybody that you could say, oh, he's pretty bad. They might have the odd naff game, but naff compared to 10 years ago is world class. So Stephen Fletcher has been brilliant the last few times I've seen him. He's been awesome. But it sounded, like I said, I listened via the potato. So it sounded brilliant the other night. It really did sound like he was on top of everything, and he was ready to take everything. And obviously I've seen the highlights and everything else, and he just looked class. And I don't know if it took a deflection from, like you said, James, from what I saw in the highlights. I couldn't tell if it did or not.
Regardless whether it took a deflection or not, that was his 100th league goal, which is cracking. That's such a good achievement for him.
Yeah, I mean,
for Sheffield Wednesday already.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Hell.
They've played like 6 games, but
That's
somehow
incredible.
No, it's. Do you know what I mean? As I said, he's had spells where it hasn't quite worked for him. I think he himself has admitted that. But, at Sunderland, he was never going to go back there after the Marseille stint, and Marseille was just a useful distraction and chance to do something else for 6 months. But I think he has proven previously in his career, Wolves, Burnley, up in Scotland, that he, when he gets on a run like this, he is not just predatory but really skillful. Really skillful. He contributes in so many ways. He links up so well. So yeah, I mean, again, just reinforcing what Vic said, he is. He's playing for us, and I think there's a degree of kind of, jaw smacking against floor with this. That, hang on a minute, we've got a genuine number 9, but who's got all these extra bits to him as well. So yeah, I mean, 100 goals. It's so glad that he managed to reach that landmark with us. Yes,
and very true. He is indeed a very genuine number 6. That's absolutely right. While I think about this as well, I mean, he came incredibly close to scoring a cracker against Forest as well. Because, I mean, he's a guy that he shoots on sight, doesn't he? He gets a sight of goal, he'll have a pop. And how long has it been since we've had someone that has, firstly, the confidence, but also the ability to do that? If he gets a sight of goal, 9 times out of 10, he gets a shot on target. And that's brilliant. And that's all you can ask for out of a striker. To talk about someone else as well, then that I think had a really good game on Tuesday, and this is a weird one because Adam Reach, obviously we brought him for a lot of money, and since he's been with us, he's been having to play in a position that we probably didn't expect him to be playing in at left back. I can't quantify what I mean by this, but I'm seeing signs now in him of why he was a £5 million player. There are things that he
100%.
does that just look class. Even playing at left back on Tuesday night. Well, 2 things on Tuesday night. He seemed to fall over a lot. I'm guessing he had the wrong studs on in the first half. But also the way that he can go past a man, the way that he can cross the ball in. This guy is going to be seriously good, isn't he?
Yeah.
Me and the guys around us this season have been saying, do you know, 5 million obviously is our highest ever signing. That's huge. That is massive. That's bigger than Di Canio. But you're looking money then, money now. £5 million for a really, really good player in the Championship is not a lot of money. So actually, he's a bloody good signing. And we we're almost piling pressure on him by saying, oh, he's our highest ever signing, you know, bigger than Di Canio, blah, blah, blah. But Di Canio was, Christ, like, what, 20 years ago? Was it 20 years
Something
ago?
like that, yeah.
Jesus.
No, it was
Oh,
almost
my
90,
God,
it was like
I'm old.
98, 99, wasn't it? Something like that.
So that is a long time ago. And money since then has changed big time. And football since then has changed absolutely dramatically.
And you know what?
But £5
else?
million isn't that much, but at the same time, it's a good, very, very good player in this league.
He hasn't even peaked yet, Vic. He's still young. And do you know? I know what you mean about that, James. When you sort of say you can't quite put your finger on it, I think what it is, he makes the game look effortless. He does the simple things very well, and he's got great judgment. He's got all the technical stuff. I think that's almost sort of down pat. But it's actually his brain in a weird sort of way that I think marks him out. And you know, I think when he is playing left wing, I think he will be frightening. I think it'll be absolutely frightening. In a way, I can't wait till Pudil is fit so that he doesn't have to worry about that side of his game. But he, you know, he does what he's asked to do, and he does it so easily, so effortlessly. And he's still going to get better and better. So even more to add to your argument, Vic, about it being great value. This player will be worth 3 times that in a few years if he carries.
Easily, yeah.
And just to give him credit as well for the fact that I think he's overtaken Fessy now as our smiliest player. Have you ever seen Adam Reach without a massive smile on his face? He's one happy chappy, isn't he?
That's only because Fessy's cried the last few times. He's going through a bad patch. He's coming out of it now. He's on the way up. So don't give him that title yet, James. Let's leave it to Fessy.
Right, let's move on. We've talked a lot about the players that have played well in the last couple of games, and we've touched on the performances earlier in the month as well. Of course, it is that time. It is Player of the Month time, or Man of the Month, as we all know it should be called. Now, as people listen to this, chances are it will have been announced. Now, I'm guessing that it's going to be Kieran Lee because of the goals that he scored and the manner in which he's scored the 2 late winners, and of course the nature of his performances as well. But there's a fair few players that could give him a run for his money. I mean, we've talked a lot about Stephen Fletcher, haven't we, tonight? This could be a close one.
I think it will be Kieran, just simply because, you know, you can't beat 2 last-minute goals to win a game. Or a late goal. I think it's and he, you know, scores what 6-7 goals a season. He's all, you know, is he our top scorer? Him and Fletcher, or him and Fletcher probably.
He's
level.
our top scorer, I think, isn't he?
I think Fletcher's got 3, and he's got 3, hasn't he?
Yeah, they've got 3 apiece. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's probably going to be Kieran, and that's probably right. But I think Stephen is contributing in lots of different ways. It's not just the goals, you know. It's the link up. It's the, you know, again, the Hooper assist was, you know, the guy was on his backside, and he gets up and back heels into Hooper. I mean, you know, it's brilliant. But I think, you know, maybe in future months we're gonna be saying Fletcher, because once he's already up and running now, and I think once he's truly linking up with each of his different strike partners and midfielders, then you know it may well be him.
Whether you're celebrating a birthday, a wedding or anniversary, maybe you've passed your driving test, or you've landed a new job. Well, whatever your reason for a party, the Riverside Cafe is the perfect location on Catch Bar Lane overlooking Hillsborough Stadium. To inquire about hiring us for your function, call 07989 856 054 or 0114 232 6121. Okay, now on the pitch then, we've already said it's been a great week for Sheffield Wednesday. Off the pitch, we've had some sad news this week with the death of the former Al striker Jackie Sewell at the age of 89. Jackie played 175 times for Wednesday and scored 92 goals back between 1951 and 1955. Quite interestingly, we were talking earlier about Adam Reach being our record transfer signing for £5 million plus. Jackie was our record signing at the time when he joined from Notts County. Have you guys got any idea how much that was for?
Hang on, when was this? 51, right?
51, yeah. It was £35,000 at the time was our record signing, which would give you Stephen Fletcher for a week nowadays, wouldn't it? He helped us to the second tier title, promotion back to the top flight. Obviously, his passing comes in a season that we hope that we can replicate that. Whatever people might think, none of the three of us are quite old enough to remember Jackie on the pitch, but there's going to be plenty of Wednesday fans out there that will do. And he does leave behind, I mean, that's a cracking goal-scoring record, isn't it? 92 goals in 175 games. You know, we'd give anything to have a striker with that kind of strike rate now.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this his record at Notts County was pretty good. You know, he came to us, and I think it's just that level of it's not just the goal; it's the level of consistency. It's the fact that, you know, you can do it season after season, and especially having been the most expensive signing, you know, to deal with that pressure and then keep delivering on that, and then, you know, he went to Villa and also scored goals. So yeah, I mean, you know, we sometimes forget actually when we look back at some of the players that have played for us, you know, back down the years, and people think of the 30s and people think of the 60s when they think of Wednesday, but actually in between times we still had some pretty good players. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a nice little symmetry you've brought up there, James, because yeah, we want to get back up to the top level of English football, and he helped us do that by you know, winning the second tier. And, you know, I'm hopeful. I mean, listen, I don't know how much other current modern day footballers are aware of this, but, you know, it's a really good example, that. And, you know, if they are, then they can just use it as a little bit of inspiration, like, you know, class of 91 was for people last year, 25 years on. So, you know, yeah, absolutely, it's an incredible achievement what he managed to do.
Absolutely. So you know, in a lot of ways, a sad week for the Wednesday family, if you like, but also coming in the week that we really saw the best of the Wednesday family. Everyone that was there at the Forest game on Saturday would have seen the people outside the turnstiles with the buckets collecting for a cause that I think we all know about now, which is raising money for Hayley. As I think we all know, she's the wife of Wednesday's performance director. She has a very aggressive cancer and is currently raising money for alternative therapy in America. The collection at Hillsborough on Saturday raised, this is just from the fans, £11,464, and the club are matching that as well, which gives us near as damn it 23 grand, which is just brilliant, isn't it?
Unbelievable, isn't it? Like, I was excited last season when Cavendish raised like 1,700 quid. I was like, oh my god, we're the highest ever bucket collection. That's amazing. It's just 10 times more, pretty much. And it's just obscene. Like, that is amazing. And, like, I literally emptied my purse into that bucket, and there were notes, there were coins, whatever else. So did my other half. So did our friend John. Like, and I think everybody did, because it's a genuine sort of, it's a person. You know, you're not raising for, obviously I work for a local independent charity, but you're not raising for sort of Macmillan or these huge charities that you don't really know where your money is going. You know that this is going to pay for a wife, a mother, to get the treatment that, to be honest, she should be getting in the UK. Like, there's no need for it to go abroad. Like, we all pay into the NHS, but that's another question. But fantastic. Like, that is brilliant. And it brought a tear to my eye when I saw it, I must admit.
And do you know what else? I think we've known about this campaign because it's been going for some time, because she's been fighting for so long. And I think what I find even more staggering is the generosity, given that there are probably some people who contributed on Saturday who had contributed before, and probably before then. And no one's getting kind of contribution fatigue, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? No one's going, oh, well, I've kind of donated to that, so now it's me done. And that just shows, I think, the strength of feeling for it, and how much everyone just desperately wants to get her this next stage of treatment. Everyone who's sort of signed up to the mailing list, you know, who's donated, gets a little update, and, you know, everyone is still just full steam ahead, full force behind this. And I think, you know, that's for me one of the most pleasing aspects, is it's just keeping going, and hopefully that momentum will continue.
I think it's a real person, isn't it, as well? That's what that's what gets you to dig that extra pound note out of your pocket. Is that it's a real person. Like, and I'm sure we would be the same if it was a fan, if it was anybody. And there's a link to Sheffield Wednesday. You suddenly think, Jesus, that could be me. That could be my wife. That could be my mum. That could be anybody. And I think that's why, everyone's digging deep. And I've done exactly what you just said, David. Like, I've given the last few times that there's been an Ask Come Out, and then gave on Saturday and whatever, and I will still continue to. But it just really shows that the whole group of fans are completely behind her. And especially with it being like Forest and it being like local fans who went, do you know what? She's from Derby, we're Nottingham, we're Sheffield. Everyone comes together and just goes, that could be us.
Couldn't agree more. I have got to backtrack slightly though. Vic, during that, did you refer to digging the last pound note out of your bag? I'm sorry, how old are you again?
18.
Right, now we're going to talk about the Brighton game in a bit, obviously, but it is the final game before we go into the second international break of the season, and that, of course, means international call-up time. Now, clearly, all of us are going to have abandoned supporting England after recent events, so maybe we're just starting to warm to the idea now of becoming Scotland fans, because once again,
I'm 100% Scotland now.
We've got two players in the squad, haven't we? Fletcher and Bannon both called up. Interesting to see Fletcher called up because neither Jordan Rhodes or Ross McCormack made it into the squad. So
what's that tell you, James? What's that tell you? We've got the best.
That Fletcher's better.
Forget about the rest.
We knew this anyway, but
we did.
Obviously the setup at Scotland agree. And you've got to say, on the basis of their performances this season, both really well deserved.
Hugely. I mean, Bannon ran the show against Malta. I know it was only Malta, but he totally did. And this is a player who wasn't in Strachan's thoughts about sort of a good a year ago, and they were in touch. But and Strachan was contacting him to see how it was, and the fact that he's in a settled run, he's again, like for me, Fletcher is now. Bannon is one of the first names on the team sheet because he's playing a lot deeper now, but he knits everything together. He sets our tempo. He dictates things, and the combination of the two has been really, really good. And you can tell even when Fletcher came on, it was Bannon's ball to him against Malta, and he scored. And so. I think it is very well deserved, and it's totally unsurprising because, the guy has been performing, Barry's been performing at such a high level, and Stephen's just found his mojo again. So, and it's nice, isn't it nice to have players on, who are away playing for their countries on international duty? It's been a while since we've had a few. Now we've got like Westy, we've got Poodle when he's fit, these two, Wildsmith when he's fit with the under-21s. It's quite nice to be able to follow our players playing for their countries, don't you think? Like we haven't had that for a few years.
Yeah, we said this last time, didn't we? That it was probably Majid Bagheera was the last player that we had that was a regular international call-up. And maybe Kamil Zayet, who was called up for Egypt, wasn't he, while he was playing for us. But yeah, absolutely brilliant, and long may it continue. You'd like to think that we've got players like Wildsmith, maybe even Adam Reach, who've got potential to go on and have international careers, and that's got to be good for us. Right then, big news. Big finally we have the new badge outside the South Stand main entrance.
Looks
which
big and shiny.
It's looked bare for a while, hasn't it? And I was a bit worried about this because we've talked about the ones that have gone up on the Kop side of the of the ground, which haven't particularly wowed us in terms of quality. But this is a different affair. This is a pretty good badge.
Well, I took a detour tonight on my drive home from work, and YOLO, such a loser. But actually, do you know what? It looks brilliant. It's like it's 3D. It's like hanging there. It looks really, really heavy and really classy. And the ones on the Kop, they don't look great, but I don't think they're a permanent solution, to be honest. The way that they're put up, they're all in like sort of panels, and do you know what? From a distance, they look awesome, but up close, bit naff. But I don't think that's the final product.
Is it a bit negative if I say Still don't like the badge. Still prefer the old one.
Yeah, it is.
All right, I'll not say it then. That's fine. We'll gloss over that.
No. Listen, I mean, everyone's taken a while to get used to the badge. Seeing as it's, it changed to that crest, and then it changed slightly a bit more, and slightly a bit more, and then they made the owl bigger, and then they opened his eyes, and they closed his eyes, and then they opened his eyes again, and yeah. But I think it's not so much the crest. I think when you see it on the shirt, it's the side of the crest on the shirt. It's just enormous. You've got a tiny Sondico and this massive crest, and on the shirt and the shorts, it looks like it's taking up your whole quad basically. But I think I've got used to the crest, and I think as Vic says, the one that's on the front, just over the bridge on the front of the building, looks really smart. It looks like a proper entrance to a football club now. And listen, maybe this is me being geeky, but I love our Latinate motto. I think it's part of who we are, and Concilio Animis is as I've always, when I was a young fan, and facts about my club, I always used to love trotting that one. It's by wisdom and courage, that's what we're about. The Owls, etc. So yeah, I think it's really impressive. I think it's very, very imposing, which I think is what Mr. Chansiri wants. That's why he changed it in the first place. The old insignia was too passive, too weak. You can't say that about this one.
Now, as we said, that's big news this week. But there is bigger news than that this week. Anyone that's been in the Wednesday Club shop will know that the range of stuff in there at the moment is not brilliant. Now, we have a solution to this problem, don't we, Vic?
Unless you want a tape measure. Yeah.
Come on, Vic, what is the solution then? If someone wants to buy some quality Sheffield Wednesday related merchandise, but can't find what they want in the club shop, and maybe want to make a small contribution to their favourite podcast along the way.
Yeah, so you can log on to tww.tmill, which is TEEmill.co.uk, and there you can find a range of T-shirts and hoodies and bags, Hessian bags, that are all available. I've sacked off our last supplier, to be honest. They were crap. So we've gone with these new guys, and it's all eco-friendly and, I don't know, not made by children, all that stuff. So we get a much lower sort of profit from each T-shirt. But we have got them up live, and you can log on now. And if you apparently, I didn't realise that the descriptions don't come up unless you click onto each individual product even. And each one, you will realise I was getting increasingly bored with uploading stuff to our shop. And so there are some really interesting descriptions on there where at one point I was like, wow, I didn't know I could do this. This looks pretty professional. Here we go.
Is there any things with your new little avatars on them?
There are, David. You can buy a shopping bag. And the shopping bag is awesome for you to take to games. However, do not carry any sort of canned drinks or umbrellas or lighters or darts or ammunition or frogs in them, because they are banned. However, you can get hoodies and T-shirts and whatever else. I've ordered a hoodie. It should hopefully be here by Sunday. It's double taxing because I pay for it and then we get the money back through the podcast, but brilliant.
That's fine. And it's paid directly to me, if I understand correctly, into my account.
It goes straight into your PayPal. Brilliant. But yeah, so log on, have a look. It's all on our Twitter and our Facebook. And we've got to give a huge shout out to Adam, who does all our design. James, you know his Twitter? Is it Adam Nitch?
Adam Nitch, yeah. Adam Nich. He designed our logo and has designed much of the stuff that you see in the shop, including the "Can We Have a Chat About Wolves Away" T-shirt, which I'm pretty certain will be the bestseller by the end of the week.
Which is also available in khaki, in case you're in the army. I thought I'd throw it out there. I thought, you can have blue, white, red, yellow. I thought, no, do you know what? I'm going to throw one out for the forces.
You do have a fair contingent of listeners from the armed forces, don't you? I mean, you're massive in the army and the navy, aren't you?
Yeah, totally. So I just thought this means they can hide in the jungle, wear the shirt, represent the podcast, but no one will see them. So yeah, they're all available. It's pretty expensive, not gonna lie. But like I said, it's all eco-friendly and it's not fruit of the loom. So woo!
Vic, don't ever go into sales, for God's sake, please, no.
I know. That's why I work in marketing.
The khaki version, by the way, of the Wolves t-shirt would be very good if you ever find yourself going to Wolves away, because you'll want to hide from Wolves fans due to the fact that they're all horrible. Slight aside to all that, but David, you mentioned about our new cartoon versions. Anyone that's not seen the video, have a look at our Facebook or our YouTube. Now, of course, as you are guest podcaster tonight, would you like a cartooned David Garrido made for you? Because we can make that happen.
Like yours, like a Bitmoji type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why not?
We
yeah,
can
okay.
get that for you. I am.
All right.
David, I actually had a dream the other night. I had a dream that I was on holiday and I bought one of those. You know those little things? I think they've called like Pez or something, where you could like shoot out little soap-shaped treats. And it had your face on it, and that was in my dream. And I was like, "Oh my God, David, look what I just bought from Spain." So maybe, hopefully, one day, if this gets to number one, we could make those.
Oh, that is the dream right there. That is the dream, not just your dream. That is the dream. And I would, yes, sign me up right now. And also, can I get a signed Hessian bag, please?
They are described in the shop as man bag, so it is completely acceptable.
Well, you know me, I'm as metrosexual as they come. So literally, sign me up. I want 3.
Brilliant. We will, of course, post the link directly to the shop, so you can have a look if there's anything that you want. Contrary to what Vic says, I don't think they're too badly priced. They're actually cheaper than the ones in the shop that we were running before, so you can save yourself.
That is true.
A couple
of
quid. Right, on
and
to
they're eco-friendly, James. They're eco-friendly.
Eco-friendly, and how do you describe it? They're not made by kids, which
yeah,
as much as you can want from a t-shirt.
What do you want?
Now, we discussed earlier on the absence of Dickie Owl tonight. Now, in his honour, I feel it's right that we continue with his Where Are We Now feature, which, to be fair, I've already kind of hijacked over the last couple of weeks anyway. So, who was it that was after last week? And already by the end...
I can't remember. Fudge knew him and Eddie knew him.
Yeah, they were all like personal friends. So, I've been trying hard to come up with a player that I don't think any of us are going to know personally. But probably still remember. So I'm taking us back to the early 90s and a guy who was, I think at the time, our 3rd choice goalkeeper.
Oh, I think I know who this is.
Anyone remember the name Lance Key?
Yeah!
Now, David, you're going to tell me that you've...
Oh, David, you're going to ruin it.
You've got him on your Facebook or something, haven't you?
No, I'm not in touch with him, but I do remember him. Like when I was like a very sort of, teenage Wednesday fan. Well, yeah, I mean, in the early 90s, I was like 10 or something. And I used to like write down all the names of all the players. I used to keep this little notebook. And I used to write down all the names of the players. And obviously, obviously before him was Lance Key. And I remember what he looked like. I remember what his sort of little pen pick looked like. Little sort of, like a little sticker image, if you like. Yeah, that's a proper heritage reference. I'm enjoying that, James.
David,
he had beautiful mousy blonde hair, didn't he?
David, do you love Lance Key?
I do enjoy.
Oh.
Yeah.
So Lance, if you're listeing, if you want to get in touch, it's at TWWcast, and we will put you in touch with David Garrido.
I enjoy a lot of heritage players. Let's put it that way. I think a lot of unsung. Well, I want to say unsung heroes. I'm not sure they all are, but yeah, Lance Key is right up there. Good choice.
See, I can't actually remember whether he played a single game for us or not. He was always there or thereabouts the squad, wasn't he? But
yeah, he played.
Did he get a couple of appearances under his belt? Fair enough. So this is the task. This is the task for the week ahead. Now, I've done the legwork on this by looking him up on the Google, and couldn't really find any way of contacting him. So this is a serious project for you lot out there. We've got to try and track down Lance Key. And, I'm not saying it's competition or anything, but, if we can track him down, it will really, really annoy Rich. It'll really get on his nerves that he's not managed yet to track down any of his. So if we do this without him being here, it'll really pee him off. So yeah, well worth you doing. Right then, let's talk about some more football because as we said earlier, last game before the international break coming up this week, and it is a cracker, isn't it? So it's it's a replay of the playoff semi-final from last season. Two teams at the start of the season who were hotly tipped to be up there or thereabouts. Two teams that have made pretty good starts to the season. Wednesday against Brighton at Hillsborough this Saturday, and this is, I don't want to talk about 6-pointers this earlier in the season, but this is a hell of a big game.
Yeah, I'm nervous about this one. I must admit, I am. I don't know. Do they owe us a spanking? I think they might do, and I don't know. That's my analysis.
That's great analysis from Vic, as ever.
Well, look, what do we know about Brighton? We know that they're tough, they're organised. I mean, they don't concede, so we're going to have to really sort of play like we know we can do at home and be really incisive with that and high tempo. They managed to have done the same thing as they did before the playoff semi-final. Well, in the playoff semi-final first leg at Hillsborough, they managed to total their own midfield. Do you remember? Players, etc. Well, I think they've done the same thing again. Dale Stephens won't play. I think Brahim Kayal is out as well. So they come slightly weakened. But I think this is going to be. I think it's going to be, as you say, it's going to be a real belter of a game. Knockhart's a cracking player. I think that is the key for me because we only just survived those 25 minutes at the Amex in that second leg when he was absolutely on fire. Although a mate of mine at work tells me he's much more of a home player. He really is a big difference in the way that he plays at home and the way he plays away. He tends to kind of go missing when they go on the road. So let's just hope that's the case. But I know what you mean. It's kind of a little daunting because they are one of those teams who are up there with a decent manager. But I think we'll be okay. I think we've kind of turned the corner now after that. The last couple of wins. I think we'll be all right.
We've talked a lot on the podcast so far this evening about the players who are banging form and have been scoring goals and getting rave reviews. One player we've not mentioned so far is Gary Hooper, who's coming for a bit of stick from some Wednesday fans. But Stephen Fletcher in his interviews talked about how much he enjoys playing with Hooper, how well they work together. And I actually think that the last couple of games where Hooper's played, he's put in a good performance. For me, he's a little bit of an unsung hero because his movement off the ball, the way he pulls defenders around, I think it was brilliant last season. I think he's doing exactly the same this season. But because he's not banging the goals in prolifically, he seems to be getting a bit of stick. Where do you guys stand on this? Is Hooper deserving of a place in the starting 11 at the moment?
I think my view's a bit controversial, so I'll leave to David.
So I think he's one of those players that plays in fits and starts. I think was it Birmingham away? It was Birmingham away last year, wasn't it, when he scored those two? But he kind of had done it, I think, in the game against Cardiff the week before we came from 2 down, and he was quite sort of pivotal in the way that we played in that game. My view is that we've got a quandary here because Fletcher will play, and the question is who does he pair him up with? It's either Gary Hooper or Fernando, and at the moment we seem to be favouring Fernando on the left side of midfield. I personally think that's a bit of a funny one because then it blocks out another midfield position where we've got loads of midfielders and he's not really a midfielder, and yet we're using one of those midfielder positions for him. So I would probably play him up front with Fletcher. I just think that the two just seem to kind of complement. But if he himself is saying that he's enjoying playing with him, is again one of those things where we have the options. My view, I would probably start Gary on the bench and have Forestieri and Hooper up front. But he's a player who, when he's on a little bit of a run, then he is quite imposing in games. But it doesn't seem to last that long. It might last 2 or 3 games, and then he's off the boil a little bit after that. But he likes to drop deep. He's a sort of player that links up well, but he doesn't have the same impact, I don't think, that Forestieri has.
I just find, like, when I go to get a cup of tea and I get knackered as I walk to that kettle, and I think he's knackered from the minute he gets on that pitch. And it just, I mean, he looks a lot slimmer. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not, like, fat shaming him or anything like that. He looks like he's toned up a lot. He looks a lot fitter than he did last season. But he looks knackered all the time. And it's like, I just want to give him a prod.
He likes to just kind of not trot around, but just sort of like, I think you're right. Like the kind of frame of him is quite deceiving in some ways. Because when I saw him at Charlton away last season, he was just, whoa, bloody hell, thinking the guy needs to loosen timber. He really does. And he eventually did. But when you're like barrel chested, a bit like he is, it's sort of
barrel chested.
You know what I mean? Like,
I'm going to start using that to describe myself. Sorry, I'm barrel chested.
It's like slightly different, to be honest, but where was I? I can't remember.
I think you were barrel chested. I think that's where you got.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know. I think appearances can be deceiving. Let's put it that way. I think he's never going to be, your hardest working, tearing up the pitch, a Fernando Forestieri or a Kieran Lee or someone like that, or Bannon when he's herring back to try and win back possession or something like that. He's not one of those. He's just simply at a slower pace most of the time. But when he springs a little bit, and he's in a position, that's when I think, okay, hang on a minute, this guy can do something. But it's not as apparent with him what it is that he's good at. It's not as immediately apparent. But, I think there are times when he does completely own a game. I think, as I said, that Birmingham game last season is a case in point. My point is, does he do it often enough for that to warrant him a starting place? And at the moment, I think probably not.
Here's a question. Where would you find all of the following in one place? Chairs, tables, beer, Vic, James, more beer, Dickie Owl, Eddie, more beer, and the rest of the Wednesday week gang. That's right, it's the Riverside Cafe's new outside bar. All of your favourite lagers, ciders, soft drinks and hand pump ales are now available outside. Come and see the gang and give it a try. The Riverside Cafe's new outside bar, now open on match days.
Right then, before we wrap things up for this evening, it's Little Bits time. Vic, do you have anything for us?
I only have a slight little bit, which has been my commute for the last couple of weeks. Well, last week, sorry, since we last recorded. So I've been heading into work and I've always got stuck in traffic on Penistone Road, and I've seen a lot of the squad. So I just wanted to let you know. I saw New Hugh and Sasso in New Hugh's Range Rover, which was quite exciting. I also saw Fessy not on a bike, which I was quite upset about. I know, I was hoping for the bike again. I think it's getting into winter now, isn't it? It's a bit risky.
Yeah.
On
the road. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've seen quite a few of them. I've seen Tom Lees, I've seen Leuven's, but today, oh my God. So today I was driving down Parkside Road and it was about 8:30 and Mr. Carvalhal drove past me in his Merc with his sunglasses on, with his windows down and his radio up, and he looked just like a god. He is a god, isn't he? Like, even as he cruises around fucking S6, he looked brilliant. And I think it's just like, I was just quite excited about that. I just thought, what a legend. It was like a Merc advert.
If we look at, the sort of talents of our squad and manager in terms of the aesthetic side of things, would you say this is talented? So I mean, as a metrosexual guy, I can appreciate when another guy is good looking. I don't have a problem admitting that. Would you say the whole squad and the manager is probably the best looking that we've had in some time?
Oh, I have not studied them that hard, David, to be honest. But
you so have.
No, I'm getting a bit old now. I'm not that arse, but Carlos today looked beautiful. He had shades, like wraparound shades. If my dad wore them, you'd be like, Bill, take off your shades. why you're wearing those. But with Carlos, it's like, Carlos, you wear whichever shade you want, mate. You look awesome. He just looks so classy. And he really, really looked like just a classy sort of guy.
He does. He's obviously like a very, very good-looking man. I do always think, though, that trouser is something that can be addressed. I do think that maybe just an extra inch at the bottom, just to cover the, the top of the kind of...
That extra inch always helps, David.
Yeah, well, so...
Yeah.
So, I think that maybe that could be addressed. A little bit hard.
I couldn't see his trousers from my driving seat, but he just looked so cool. And I know I'm at the age that cool isn't really cool anymore. Like, if you say someone's cool now, it's a bit like, really? But he looks so cool. Like, I want to be him. Like, I'm going to get some sunglasses and drive around in my Fiat 500 and think I'm Carlos.
I'm sorry, but point of order in this conversation, if we're discussing the attractive or otherwiseness of the current Sheffield Wednesday squad, Sam Hutchinson single-handedly makes this the best-looking ever Sheffield Wednesday squad.
I haven't seen him on a commute, so I can't comment. Sauce.
Oh, if you're not seen him on a commute, then obviously it doesn't count. Fair
exactly, yeah. That was the whole point of my little bit, James. So get with the programme.
Thank you for that. Right, a few little bits from me, and continuing. And I think this is the fourth week in a row that I've actually done this now, which makes it a proper feature, which is the Carlos quote of the week. And it's a close one this week between. I've got two very good quotes. One that we'll all have heard, which was after the Forest game, where he said, "If they're trying to kill me, they are very close." And my other favourite quote from Carlos this week, we closed all the windows and doors to keep Blackburn in the dark. So you can kind of pick your own favourite from those two. I think two very good Carlos quotes. Another thing that's becoming a bit of a staple as well of my bits is our stat of the week, which is actually out of date now, so is slightly pointless. But before
staple of your bits.
The staple of my bits, yes. That sounds like a really, really bad medical procedure. Before Tuesday, we'd only been in the lead all together this season for 38 minutes. Obviously, it's got out the window now because we were ahead for most of the game on Tuesday night. Although, interestingly, we were ahead for longer in the game against Blackburn than we have been for every game combined for the entire season before that, which I just think is incredible, considering the fact that we are, obviously we don't look at league tables, but we are up there or thereabouts. So I think that's fantastic. Can I say as well, a massive congratulations to the real star of Stat of the Week, because I do always get it from the same guy. We mentioned him last week, Peter Lohman, who this week became a daddy again, young Anchor, who was born on Wednesday night. So all the very best to you, Peter, and the family from all of us at the Wednesday week. One final thing from me, and I've kind of made this into almost like a regular thing now as well, which I've started calling Grumpy Old Owls, because every week there seems to be an anniversary of something that's happened this week and years gone by, and it was the same this week. So this week was 18 years to the day since, and you guys might have been there as well, the fateful game against Arsenal, where... Paolo Di Canio, his final act in a Sheffield Wednesday shirt. At the time, a huge deal. Now we kind of look back on it with a bit of fondness and almost, with a bit of a smile on our face. But the thing that everyone forgets about that game as well is Lee Briscoe scoring.
Lee Briscoe, I was just going to say.
Absolutely stunning goal.
He gets no credit for that game ever, does he? I was sat here waiting like, oh my God. Please mention Lee Briscoe.
Got to get him on the pod.
He just did so.
He's one of those where are you nows. Get him on.
Yeah, he could be a future.
Oh my God, Lee Briscoe, are you listening?
Absolutely. Were you guys at that game? Because I remember it really clearly, because obviously it was towards the back end of the first half where everything started kicking off, and I was sat on about row 10, row 11 of the Kop. And all the people around me were getting really angry at the end of the first half. And there was a genuine discussion among them about whether or not we should carry out a pitch invasion at the start of the second half to get the match abandoned in protest at just how bad the referee had been.
I was there. I remember it well. And I have never, ever listened to a full conversation with Martin Keown ever since because of that very game. I turned him off. I cannot stand the man just because of that. It was all him. He ruined Wednesday up until 2010.
Yeah, no, I wasn't there, but obviously I remember it vividly. I remember speaking to, I'm just trying to think exactly who it was. I've got a feeling it was Guy Whittingham or someone like that about it. And how, oh, no, it was Andy Booth. Andy Booth. I did it
Right.
for the Wednesday programme. He was saying how he was the one person in the entire stadium who didn't have a clue what had happened because he got injured and he was down in the dressing room and he was getting treatment. And then, of course, Paolo storms in and he's ranting and raving and, slamming doors and stuff. And Andy Booth was the only man in Hillsborough who did not know what had happened. And he was like, "Oh, Paolo's in a bit of a bad mood. What's up there then?" And the way that he recounts it is really, really funny because it was only a bit later on that he actually worked out the whole extent of, and then how everything unrolled after that with how Danny Wilson reacted and obviously the club, standing firm on their, how they thought that it was out of order and etc. But yeah, I mean that's there. Obviously, I think when people talk about Wednesday in the in the 90s, Carboni, Di Canio, the next thing they go is, "Oh, what was that ref's name? Yeah, the dude that fell over."
Paul Alcock.
Yeah, that's
Never forget it, the bastard.
David, anything from you before we bid adieu?
Yes, I have some breaking news and a definitive answer to the question: was it a clean hit?
Is this going to be better than when we signed? What's his face? Go on,
Felipe
Melo.
Yeah. I listen. This is just.
You still owe me for that, David.
This is a developing story. This just in. I did ask him. He said, and I quote, "Haha, just a little one, minimal, crying with laughter, smiley face." So. That's the
Did he actually type crying with laughter smiley face?
Yes, yes.
Does he not know that emojis exist?
He's also yeah, so that's the actual explanation. So pretty clean, tiny deflection.
So actually I was kind of right. It did take a deflection. Only a small one, but they all count.
You were, babe. Stephen Fletcher has confirmed it.
It's the first time I've ever got anything right when talking about football. I'm really proud of myself. Right, that will bring us to a close for this week's podcast. Vic, if anyone wants to get hold of you to get tips on using potatoes on their radio, how do they do it?
You can find me at Victoria1867 on Twitter. And if you go onto my Twitter page or profile, whatever it is, and click on my pinned tweet, there is a link to vote for us to be the podcast of the year at the Football Blog Awards. We're going, so we're hoping that might mean that we win because we've been invited. But please vote for us. It doesn't take long. All you have to do is put in like your Facebook or your email or whatever and just type in the Wednesday week underneath Best Football Podcast.
Absolutely, get it done. David, if people want to call by your page and see what you've been up to, how would they go about that?
It is quite simply on Twitter at Sky Sports David. Obviously, there is a greater amount of Spanish football content on there these days. Apologies if that's not your thing, but that is obviously part of what I'm doing now. So yeah, but obviously on a Saturday, you'll get the usual bits and bobs from me on team news, etc. So yeah. Come along.
I'm taking it that there's no plans at the moment to reintroduce the giant ham to the Spanish football studio. I have been keeping an eye out, and as yet, there's no sign of it. Is that a definite no-no?
Yeah, I think for the moment, we are keeping the studio as it is, but maybe for some sort of Christmas special, a Christmas ham. I will propose it in any case. Just for your good self.
It would make me the happiest person in the world. If you want to get hold of me on Twitter, I am at James Marriott. Of course, me and Vic, as ever, will be in the Riverside Cafe. I assume we'll be in the Riverside Cafe before the Brighton match on Saturday. So come say hi and have a drink with us. You can follow the podcast at TWWcast. Find us on Facebook. Find us on YouTube. If you want to drop us an email, it's at let me get this right. TWW.
Podcast.
All right, hang on. Shoot. If you want to send us an email, it's twwpodcast@gmail.com. Hopefully, we will be back to full strength next week. As ever, a massive thank you to David for stepping in this week and sparing our blushes, because if it was just me and Vic, Christ, that'd be boring, wouldn't it? No one wants to listen to
Bloody
that.
hell. Even my mum wouldn't listen, would she? She'd be like, I hear this all the time.
It'd just be
I
you
don't want to hear
telling
you
me off
two.
for things. No one wants to see that. Anyway, thank you very much for your company. And, well, Vic, it's got to be over to you.
Be good, be safe, and we will see you real soon.
There's a chance here.